Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming later in the day. As you probably are aware, this morning we celebrated the life of Chairman John Dingell at Holy Trinity Church in Georgetown. And right now, many of our colleagues are in North Carolina to, again, celebrate the life of Walter Jones, our colleague from North Carolina, a beautiful, lovely man. I served with him and served with his father. Two different parties. His father a Democrat, Walter a Republican, but both of them Southern gentlemen, patriotic Americans, both of the Joneses, and certainly Walter Jones and John Dingell. Today is also a day of sadness because it marks the one-year anniversary of the Parkland tragedy of gun violence. 1 year ago, America's heart was broken by the horrific act of violence in Parkland, Florida. Today, we remember the 17 lives that were stolen from us then. I'm very pleased that last night, this House Judiciary Committee under the leadership of Jerry Nadler and with the full participation of our members, took a strong step to end the epidemic of gun violence, and they advanced H.R. 8, the bipartisan common sense background check legislation. Our committees are hard at work. I'm very proud of our freshmen. I think I've said to you before that in this freshman class, we had 18 chairs of subcommittees. To contrast that to the another historic freshman class, the Watergate Babies, when they came in with all of the size and enthusiasm that they didn't have one subcommittee chair in the first year that they took office. So we're very proud that 18 of them have gavels. By all accounts from our chairman, they come enthusiastic, well-prepared, all of the members, and especially, of course, our subcommittee chairs. So we're very hard at work on our For the People agenda while we're waiting for the Senate to pass the conference report, the bipartisan, bicameral conference report, which I understand is imminent in the Senate, and then we'll vote on it later today. So that's real progress, I think, for us to have left it to the appropriators to make the decisions, come up with a bicameral, bipartisan bill that we can overwhelmingly support. But at the same time, we are working on our For the People agenda. For the People agenda, first and foremost, said it was going to lower health care costs by lowering the cost of prescription drugs. We've already had committees, the Ways and Means Committee and the Oversight Committee, Government Reform and Oversight Committee have already had hearings on the price of prescription drugs. Our second point in the For the People agenda was to lower health care costs, bigger paychecks by building the infrastructure of America. And again, last week, the Transportation Infrastructure Committee held a hearing with representatives of the private and public sector, the mayor of Los Angeles representing our nation's mayors, Governor Walz representing our governors, and others participating there. A third point For the People agenda is H.R. 1 to reduce the role of big, dark, special interest money in politics, lower voter suppression, and increase the voice of everyday Americans in our political system, to restore confidence in our political system. And we've already had an outside of Washington hearing under the leadership of Marcia Fudge in Brownsville, Texas, with great participation from our members, including our distinguished whip, Mr. Clyburn, participating. And here this week, we've had the Homeland Security Committee having a hearing on H.R. 1 and as it relates to the integrity of our elections, and we have the House Administration Committee having a hearing on that as well. Part of our H.R. 1, 2, 3, the first 10 resolutions of the House, the first 10 bills, we're very pleased how we're advancing the For the People agenda, but also H.R. 8, the gun violence prevention bill. Probably, I think they may report out scheduled to report out that bill, and then Mr. Clyburn's initiative on the fix for South Carolina, which has bipartisan, bicameral support. Just a word further on the on the agreement that we will be voting on later today, in addition to the pieces on Homeland Security, which are very important. And by the way, the Homeland Security budget is a big budget. It's not just about the Mexico border. It's about ice cutters off of Alaska and the other parts of our border that are not necessarily just the southern part. And I'm very pleased that some long advocated for pieces are now in that budget as well. So when you talk about the size of the budget, it's broader than the U.S.-Mexico border. But the bill that we will be passing is a long overdue pay raise for federal employees to make them on a par with military employees as they had always been. An additional $1 billion for the census to combat the administration's assault on and to ensure a fair, accurate count. $3 billion to keep communities safe by combating the opioid epidemic and hiring more police officers. $17 billion to rebuild America's infrastructure, billions of dollars in support of small businesses, more than $9 billion to protect clean air, clean water, and public lands, $9.1 billion in security assistance for our allies, and $7.4 billion for global health and nutrition assistance. So this is a very important legislation. We have the 6 appropriations bills that were not agreed to and not as controversial, and then the Homeland Security bill, which produced the result that today we will keep government open, and that's very important for the American people, but we will also, as we do so, protect our borders and protect our values. Yes, ma'am.
The president just said that he will declare a national emergency when he signs this bill. Do you still plan to file a legal challenge if and when he does that, and how quickly if you do?
Did I ever say I was filing a legal challenge?
You said Democrats...
I may. That's an option, and we'll review our options. But it's important to note that when the president declares this emergency, first of all, it's not an emergency, what's happening at the border. It's a humanitarian challenge to us. The president has tried to sell a bill of goods to American people. But putting that aside, just in terms of the president making an end run around Congress, here he said, let us respect what the committee will do, and then walks away from it. But in any event, the president is doing an end run about Congress, about the power of the purse. You've heard me say over and over again, Article 1, the legislative branch, the power of the purse, the power to declare war, many other powers listed in the Constitution, and, of course, the responsibility to have oversight. So the president is doing an end run around that. We will review our options. We'll be prepared to respond appropriately to it. I know the Republicans have some unease about it, no matter what they say, because if the president can declare an emergency on something that he has created as an emergency, an illusion that he wants to convey, just think of what a president with different values can present to the American people. You want to talk about a national emergency? Let's talk about today, the one-year anniversary of another manifestation of the epidemic of gun violence in America. That's a national emergency. Why don't you declare that emergency, Mr. President? I wish you would. But a Democratic president can do that. Democratic president can declare emergencies as well. So the precedent that the president is setting here is something that should be met with great unease and dismay by the Republicans. And of course, we will respond accordingly when we review our options. First, we have to see what the president actually says. Yes, yeah.
To that end, there's been some discussion of a resolution in the House that might force Republicans to go on the record and vote against it. Would that be an option?
I'm saying that we are reviewing our options. We have to see what the president will say. This, I don't believe that there's any good faith negotiations to have with the Republicans in Congress if they're going to support the president doing an end run about what the will of the people, the Congress of the United States, has put forth. So we will review our options, and I'm not prepared to give any preference to any one of them right now. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
On the news of the past couple of moments, that the president told the Senate Majority Leader that he would sign the bill. You must be pleased with that. But on the national emergency, does that change the vote calculus at all? Obviously, if you have the president saying he's going to sign a piece of legislation, people say, okay, I would vote for that, but also that caveat that could potentially peel votes away. Does that have any impact?
Let's just have the vote, Chad. That's very interesting, but let's just have the vote.
That changes the support one way or the other.
Well, it may, I don't know, it's probably had more of an influence in the United States Senate. We have the votes in the House. But it is interesting to see how the president has said to the Republican leadership in the Senate, Senator Shelby, a senior appropriator, the chairman of the Appropriations Committee there, respected leader in the United States Senate. I don't have confidence in what you did, even though the president failed to convince the American people and their representatives in Congress of his position. But let's just see what the votes are. Who knows what the calculus is on the other side? I don't...
Doesn't affect your side of the aisle.
No.
Madam Speaker, as far as the
I'm sorry.
gun control bill, or rather the
Yes.
background check bill is concerned, you just said that a national emergency should
Yes.
be declared.
Well, it could be declared. If you want to talk about emergencies, that's a national emergency.
That's something that you would like to see a president declare.
No, I'm just saying a president could do that. If you want to go down that path, then let's look at what really is a national emergency. I'm not advocating for any president doing an end run around Congress. I'm just saying that the Republicans should have some dismay about the door that they are opening, the threshold they are crossing.
Madam Speaker, in your opening comments, you spoke some about the freshman class.
Yes.
I was just wondering that there have been a number of viral moments that some of these new Democratic members,
No,
especially...
that's the word, isn't it? Viral. That's your questions now about viral moments of the freshmen.
Thought of their influence. Do these Dem freshmen have an outsized influence that you've never seen before?
No. This is welcome to the Democratic Party. We are not a rubber stamp for anybody. We are not a monolith. We never have been. And who would want to lead a party that would be described that way? The members come, they bring their enthusiasms, their priorities. We welcome that. And they're not programmed. They are spontaneous, prepared, and I'm proud of them. Okay? Yes, sir.
Again, you mentioned the anniversary of Parkland several times.
Yes.
And the legislation you're bringing to the floor.
Yes.
It enjoys broad support.
Yes.
Other legislation to that end, not quite as popular around the country, although it's more popular among the Democratic caucus than probably ever. Are you committed to bringing to the floor some further legislation to that end, such as the restoration of the ban on assault-style weapons?
Well, the committee, the Judiciary Committee and the committees of jurisdiction will review any proposals that we have on any subject. And what they have prioritized, and we have, in addition to the committee, we have a task force headed up by Congressman Mike Thompson of California has worked in a bipartisan way to protect the American people. What are the measures that save the most lives? And how do we get them into law? It's a proposal that turns into legislation, that it passes as law, that makes a difference in the lives of the American people. And it's up to the committee and the task force to make their proposals as we go forward. We do think that keeping guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them probably saves the most lives. Thank you all very much.